My name is Mary Haddon, and I am the Youth Educator and Advocate at Project Safe.
Hi, my name is Adrienne Shook, and I am one of the Team Textline Managers here at Project Safe.
Yeah, so this video we're going to be talking about the text line and how it got started, and a little bit about answering the text line and why it's so important. The text line started in 2012, and it's a resource for teens experiencing dating violence. A few years ago, we were reading a bunch of research that pointed to teens experiencing abuse in their relationship at alarming rates. In fact, 1 in 3 teens will be in an abusive relationship during their teenage years. When we looked at who was reaching out to Project Safe for services, we recognized that they were a group that really weren't reaching out. So we wanted to be able to provide a service that teens would feel comfortable reaching out to. And we all know teens and young adults are texting, and so we thought that that would be a really great way to be able to provide support, provide information to teens who may be experiencing relationship abuse. Teens experience relationship abuse in very similar ways that adults do. That abuse may be verbal, physical, emotional, sexual. There's also a lot of digital abuse that we see in teenage relationships where an abusive partner is controlling the person that they're with through social media or making rules about checking in or texting. And so we really wanted to be able to not only provide services to teens who are experiencing this problem, but also being able to provide information on what makes healthy relationships, how to set boundaries in relationships. So we really want to explore that relationship spectrum that any relationship can run from healthy to unhealthy to abusive aspects of relationships. So with that being said, I want to turn it over to Adrienne to talk a little bit more about the text line, because Adrienne was actually an intern answering the text line before she became a text line manager. So Adrienne, can you speak a little bit about what the experience is like answering the text line?
Yeah, so I was really fortunate that I got to intern right before becoming staff as the text line manager. So I really loved being on call on the text line because I felt like I was able to help people, and I knew that I had the text line manager available to offer any advice, where I wasn't alone to just kind of go with what I thought was okay. If I was stuck at any point, I would just call and ask questions. And it's similar to hotline, but fortunately the text line manager is able to pull things up and assist you as you go along, and they can see everything, and you can edit your responses a little bit better than when you're talking to someone on the phone. So it's really helpful, and as far as educating and the advocacy part, it's super helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you are on call for text line, that does mean that you may be answering texts not during normal business hours. And we find this is especially true with teenagers who have questions about their relationship. It seems like maybe they're winding down for the day, maybe thinking about going to bed, but they just have this issue or this question on their mind, and they need somebody to talk to. And so we do see that we do have some teens texting in maybe a little bit later in the evening or at night because they really need somebody to talk to. They really need some honest feedback, some advice, and just to receive support about what's going on. One thing that we know about teen dating violence is that teens a lot of times don't talk about what's going on in their relationship, especially with people who may have really good advice to give. So maybe they've talked to another friend, but their friend doesn't necessarily understand that maybe what's happening is abusive or not okay. When we think about teenagers starting relationships, a lot of times the information that they're getting is from things that they've seen on TV or in movies or hear in music. And that's not necessarily reflective of what healthy relationships are. And so they may feel not okay about what's been happening, but they just kind of are stuck with what to do with what's happening next, right?
Absolutely.
And so we want to be that listening ear, and because of a lot of training that you will have received, you'll be able to give some good advice about what this team can maybe do, or how they can handle certain situations, or maybe even helping them to identify supportive adults in their lives that can help. Yeah. So, Adrian, can you tell us a little bit more about your role as a Textline manager, like how you'll be involved with our interns who are answering the text line?
Sure. So usually when we have our interns, I will help with the training, and so my partner Angel and I both will come up with different exercises so that we can actually give them some practice prior to taking shifts on the text line, so that way they feel a little bit more comfortable. And we have a few different resource packets that we have given them. So we have not only different domestic violence agencies, but we do have a mental health resource list, and we have a sexual assault center list, because we do get a variety of different issues that come up on the text line. So we want them to be prepared, so that way they know better what resources, and they don't have to go necessarily searching for it. So really making sure that they know what is available to them, and knowing that we are on call always. So one of us is always on call with the two interns that are on the text line, so they are able to reach out to us at any time. And for example, if they get a text and they contact one of us, they're like, hey, I'm kind of lost as to what to say next, then we can just go in from our phones and just go in, pull up the entire conversation, and give them pointers and things that they may want to try to say to the texter, and really give them that specific guidance to that specific texter, so that they really know how that they're able to help the texter and explore different options with them.
Yeah, awesome. And so you pointed out a really awesome thing about being on the text line, which is that you guys as text line managers are available 24/7. So anytime that you're getting a text, Adrian and Angel are ready to help you out in any way if you need it. So in that way, you are never alone with the text line, and we want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable with that. And so with that being said, there are some differences between text conversations versus hotline calls. I'm sure if you think into your personal lives, you can think of an example. I know I definitely can, where I've said something through a text message, and whoever I sent it to kind of read it wrong and maybe thought I was mad at them when I was just asking a question. So the cool thing about the text line, which you mentioned earlier, is when you are getting a response, you can think about what you want to say, type out what you want to say it back to yourself, and make sure that it sounds really good. Because we are bringing the same kind of core concepts that we would with the hotline call to the text line. We want to provide support, we want to provide empathy, and we want to encourage the texter to open up to us and feel supported and feel empowered and feel like they're getting the services that they're looking for. We want to refer the texter to any appropriate resources that may help them. If maybe it's a sexual assault center, maybe it's counseling, maybe it's to the public health department. And so we want to make sure that they know about the different resources that are available in their community that can help them through whatever situation they're going through. A lot of times when we get texts, the texter's not just experiencing teen dating violence. There's several other things also going on in their lives. And so you may get a text and it is rapid fire, I have this and this and this and this and this. And just like we say with the hotline, it's up to you to set the pace of the conversation. And so we kind of want to prioritize with what seems most pressing and most important. We want to address that, provide resources, provide support, And then as we get through as we're going through the conversation, we want to go back and address some of those other issues that have been brought up, and making sure that we've covered everything. And then through that, we also want to check back in the next day. We want to just to help the texter know and feel supported. So we want to maybe the next day follow up and say, hey, I just want to check in, see if you were able to maybe have that conversation or follow up with that resource. See if there are any other questions that have come up since then, because we want our texters to feel comfortable reaching out to us.
Yeah, and I think that is a really good point, Mary, about prioritizing, because a lot of times some of these teens that are texting, they're just so overwhelmed by the different things going on in their lives. So just having that resource available where they can prioritize and tackle each issue as they see that they need to, and really empowering them to just be able to make their own decisions, and not necessarily like going to somebody and then telling them what they have to do, and just kind of letting them be able to make their own decisions about their lives that they see is going to work best for them is super helpful. And I know some texters who've even said, oh, I got this number from a friend because they found it super helpful. Mm-hmm. So it's a really great feeling to know that it's working, and that a lot of teens really find it a great resource.
Yeah. Can you speak more to the text line being anonymous?
Yes. So anytime that a texter will message in to the text line, we get a case number and we can pull up everything, but everything is confidential and we don't share anything with anyone. They don't even have to tell us their name or anything. So it's definitely anonymous, and that way they feel a little bit more comfortable and feel like there's less judgment, because sometimes that's why they don't feel comfortable talking to some people. And sometimes when they say, oh, I don't really know an adult that I can talk to, because they don't want to feel that judgment or feel like they're going to, get in trouble for some certain situations.
Yeah, so the text line is anonymous. We can see what past conversations have looked like. We can see a phone number, but that doesn't really tell us a lot about where this person may be, who they are. And so in that way it is anonymous. Are there exceptions to that?
So the only exceptions really are if they are posing harm to themselves or to others. And we are mandated reporters, so any situation that arises, then we do address that with the texter and say that that is the only thing that would break the confidentiality and the anonymity of it. But other than that, fortunately I haven't had that situation arise, but that's pretty much the only time that it would not be anonymous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and that is important. I think, if we kind of see a conversation maybe heading in the direction of a texter disclosing something to us, we want to let them know up front that we are mandated reporters, so that they can make some choices about what they choose to tell us. It's kind of towing the line between our obligations as mandated reporters, but maintaining the support of the text line and the valuable resources that we can provide to texters.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Oh, and another thing, we always like everyone to feel their safety is of utmost importance. So we encourage interns and everyone to make sure that they ask, are you in a safe place to talk, if they may be in a dangerous situation, and if they are in certain situations, we make sure to safety plan with them so that they know what different steps that they can take, or maybe even, like we mentioned, the digital abuse, saying, is there any way you can change passwords, or just sometimes things that they're not really thinking of to make sure that they're being safe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like we say at Project Safe, safety is our utmost concern, and so that means that we are still safety planning with our texters on the text line. And we want to, any safety concerns that they bring to us, we want a safety plan around those. So making sure that our texters understand how to turn off location settings on their phones, how to maybe erase text messages with us so that their abusive partner may not find them, and that could become worse to somebody who's experiencing dating violence. Talking about, we talk a lot about breakups, and I'm sure you guys have heard through other videos that ending an abusive relationship is one of the most dangerous times for a survivor. And so we definitely, if somebody's thinking about ending a relationship, we definitely want a safety plan with them. That's a time where we would encourage them to maybe talk to their counselor at school, because maybe there's some classes that could be changed around, so that this texter doesn't have to potentially see their abusive partner in the hallways or have the same classes as them, but also changing up typical routes if they're always hanging out at a certain place on Wednesday evenings, maybe changing that up for a little while, so this abusive partner doesn't know where they are at all times, and watching what they post on social media, or checking in and things like that, or being tagged in certain locations, so that again that abusive partner doesn't know or have access to that survivor. That's very important.
Absolutely.
We'll talk a little bit more when we go through some scenarios about what safety planning on the text line will look like.